Hey everyone, my name is Emilio Pazmino, and today I will be talking about novel techniques for studying and surveying river dolphin populations worldwide. So the problem we are facing is that river dolphins are an extremely rare mammal. Pretty much all species of them across the world are now endangered due to human activities, habitat destruction, illegal fishing, poaching. So much so that there's probably one species that's already extinct. So right now it is very important that we study and survey their populations. However, not just because they're now very rare, but there's other factors that make this very, very challenging. For example, they live in water that tends to be very murky. There's a lot of debris in it. And since they're big animals, they can cover a large amount of distances. The river systems in which they live, such as the Yangtze or the Amazon, they're thousands of kilometers long, and they have many, many tributaries. So it can be very difficult to cover such a vast amount of area. Now, the traditional method that's used to survey them is by boat. You go out on a boat, and since they are aquatic mammals, they do have to come up for air. So you can try to spot them when they pop up for air, but this can be very difficult for a number of reasons. One, the dolphins can stay underwater for a long amount of time, so you don't know when they're going to pop up or where. And even if you do see them, it can be difficult to count them if you're doing a survey. And the problem can also be with the boats themselves. They can disturb the dolphins. They can pollute the water. The areas in which you're studying can also be too large to cover, as I mentioned before. It can take a very long time to do. And then the areas can be very dangerous or difficult to navigate. There might be rapids, or it just might be an area of the world in which you don't really want to be in it for too long. So another method that has come up more recently is the use of drones, and it addresses some of these issues. For example, it can cover a wider area. It gives you essentially a bird's eye view, so you can see a little bit better. It helps with the water turbidity because if you're looking from above, the light allows you to see a little bit deeper than if you're looking at it eye level. And it can be a little bit easier to follow the dolphins rather than try to chase them on a boat. You can just look at them from above. However, drones still have a lot of drawbacks to them. One, they require a lot of technical expertise to operate. And there are still many places in the world, including in the US, that you have to have a lot of different permits that you need to get. There's a lot of regulations and laws that you have to use. And then in regards to the dolphins, drones, they can be very loud, and they can mess with the dolphins. And they can also learn to avoid them if you're getting too close. And drones also have a limited amount of battery and range, so you have to be mindful of that when operating them. And they can still be damaged by things. So if you're in a place where there's very hazardous weather, you have to be careful with that. Now, the most interesting method that I found when researching this was the use of acoustic data, because since these mammals echolocate, you can detect their communication in the water to see if they're there. They have very specific frequencies. And this method is highly accurate, and it works regardless of the water visibility, because again, you're not seeing the dolphins, you're hearing them. And it's completely passive. The dolphins don't even know you're doing it. However, there's still a few challenges with this method. For example, again, it requires a lot of technical expertise. And there are ways that the signals and the frequencies can be messed with depending on the environment you're in. For example, if there's artificial noise pollution, there's other natural sounds, and then even sediments and other suspended particles can alter frequencies. So it can be challenging to operate in some spots. And then the final method that I looked at was the use of eDNA, again, a passive technique. You don't even have to be in the same area at the same time as the dolphins to find it, because all you need is a little sample of water to detect if they're there. But there is a couple major catches with this one, where one, it only determines the presence or absence of the dolphins. It doesn't tell you anything about them, like how many there are, or their health or their age, nothing. So you just know if they're there or not. And you also need a reference sample to test against. And if you're talking about a very rare animal, it's might be hard to obtain that reference sample. And then also the eDNA can degrade over time. So depending on the environmental conditions. So even if you don't have to be there when the animal is there in the moment, you still would want to get a fresh sample as possible. So my recommendations are basically the most important one. If there's one takeaway from all of this, is that there is no one size fits all solution. Using multiple methods rather than relying solely on one is always going to be the best approach. And then in regards to the specific methods, when you're tracking them by boat, don't try to chase them or disturb them, because that's gonna teach them that they need to flee from you when they detect you. So they might see you, or might hear you rather, long before you arrive. So it might become challenging if you try to chase after them. Like I mentioned before, use acoustic data if the water's too turbid, but it doesn't have a lot of like noise pollution or debris. And then for drones, try to use drones that have long range observation capabilities and muffled or silent motors. And then, of course, use the ones that have vertical takeoff, because if you're out, you're probably launching them from a boat. You don't have a landing site. And then finally, eDNA can be used to determine if the area is worth surveying with all the other methods. So you use it before to see if there's any dolphins in the area, and then you use another one of the methods to actually carry out the surveying. Thank you very much. That is my presentation.